Aujourd'hui, ce qu'on constate, c'est que Emmanuel Macron, par son mépris social, eh ben, c'est lui qui a allumé le feu qui est dans les rues aujourd'hui.
It's not just about the pension reform. We also are protesting for much more.
Rubber bullet is pretty painful.
Devrait être comptabilisé à la hauteur du service de l'État.
The violence of the people is in measure of the violence of the police.
So right now we're here in Paris, it's Mayday. Thousands of protesters have come out onto the streets to demonstrate against the government. For months now there have been ongoing protests against Macron. It initially started with the pension reform, but now it's grown into something a lot bigger. Out on the streets now there's young people, old people, people from various different unions, anti-fascist groups. Everybody's here really. There's been a lot of fighting with police. So we've come here to find out what it is everybody wants now and see what's going to happen.
Premièrement, le retrait de cette réforme. Et après, bien sûr, notre camp il est à l'offensive. Parce que vivre aujourd'hui, c'est devenu dur. Le blocage des prix, c'est ça qu'on souhaite. L'augmentation du SMIC, c'est tout un ensemble qu'on lutte. Pour lequel on lutte pas seulement.
Things have been getting very violent from both protesters and the police. Do you think it's going to carry on that way?
Bien sûr. Aujourd'hui, ce qu'on constate, c'est que Emmanuel Macron, par son mépris social, eh ben, c'est lui qui a allumé le feu qui est dans les rues aujourd'hui. Et nous, on a un message clair, c'est que face à sa violence, face à la violence de l'État, face à la violence policière, face à la violence de Macron, nous, on ne se laisserait pas faire et on se défendra.
The current protests in France are the biggest in decades, with up to 1 million people gathering across the country. Things kicked off in January when President Macron increased France's pension age by 2 years and cancelled retirement benefits for many different sectors, including rail workers, farmers and electricians. Macron used his constitutional power to bypass parliament and push through the reform without a vote. This caused outrage, the straw that broke the camel's back. After years of discontent with Macron and the leading opposition party being far right, people took to the streets to protest. The police crackdown was swift and aggressive. Protesters, the majority of which were peaceful at the start, have been kicked, punched, tear-gassed, beaten and shot with rubber bullets. During this year's anti-Macron protests, dozens of people have been seriously injured by police. One protester had his hand blown off by a plastic grenade, 2 protesters were put into a coma, and a bystander lost a testicle after being clubbed in the groin. As a result, many see violence against the police as fair game. It's one side versus the other. Protesters are still mostly peaceful though, but many have become increasingly more violent as the police crackdown continues.
So can you tell me why you've come here to protest today.
Mainly we're fighting against social injustice, mainly, so it's really not just about retirement.
Have you been involved in the clashes with the police? The police have been doing a lot. It looks quite violent.
Honestly, what we do is self-defense. So when the police attack the protest, we have the means to defend ourselves. The violence of the people is in measure of the violence of the police. So they've come a step up since the Gilets jaunes and the Loi Travail. They've been attacking the people very strongly and with a lot of violence. So we answer to that mainly, and we believe in social insurrection also. Honestly, that being said, we know violence is not always the solution, or there's different ways. There's times for everything. We did the passive protest for 2 months. We tried
It didn't work?
It didn't work at all. So we trusted the syndicates, even though we know inside we can't trust them anymore. And now we're out of the solution.
A lot of people outside of France see this and say, oh, the French are protesting again, like it's just like a minor thing. Obviously, we've been here, it's not like that. It seems a lot different, it seems bigger. What do you think about that?
I think it's a compliment. That people would say that about French people. French people, we have that in our veins to fight for our rights. So that's what we do always. Like I said, it's healthy for us to have this rapport with the government. And even though lots of the fights we have, we lose. It's a little David against Goliath. It always has. But for us, it's a compliment. It's easy to say. The French always complain. Yeah, we complain, but we fight for health, for education, for social fairness.
And what is it you want from these protests?
Well, the first thing would be that this reform would be gone, that they would stop with this reform. The second thing would be that the government at least gets in consideration the people and the needs of the people and what we're asking for, and we've been asking for a long time now. And at least keep the social services that we have and keep fighting for what we already have, that they're trying to take down every year, all the time.
You think we'll get violent today?
1st of May, often it gets violent. It depends a lot on the police, on the attitude of the police.
Soon after the protest march started, the police moved in to stop it.
Protesters are moving up a few blocks, building barricades or whatever they can find, and then the police are obviously pushing forward, but it's just cat and mouse, back and forth, back and forth. Police charging every 2 minutes. The police just snatched one of the protesters. These are the special unit police, the Brav M, the ones massively responsible for a lot of the police violence here in Paris whilst these protests have been ongoing. People really fucking hate them.
C'est un gouvernement qui est particulier. On devrait être comptabilisé à la hauteur du service de l'État.
time for?
First, it's an important day because after months and months of protest, of clashes with the government and its police, Mayday had a huge importance for us. Like, we really need to have as many people as we can in the streets. It's a show of force, basically.
There is a worry. I've heard people saying that, okay, well, obviously Macron, you guys don't like him, but then the other is Le Pen. She's far right or whatever their party is. Is that something you worry about?
Yeah, kind of, but on the other hand, you know, like Macron and his government has put up like many laws that Le Pen wanted to pass. They did them by themselves. So I don't think they are like stopping the far right. I think they are leading them to power in some way. So I don't think like we have to choose between one or the other.
Sometimes it's reported as if the people that are clashing, fighting with the cops, people like yourselves, it's like, oh, they're just the troublemakers. But from what we've seen, there are thousands of people out here today. There seems to be a lot of support. Would you say that the majority of people that you come across are like, you know, in favor of these protests?
I think so, yeah. That's what like a lot of polls said. This movement still has a lot of support, and it's crazy to see so many people in the streets after months and months of movement. And even so, there is like still a minority that take active part in clashes. A lot of people back them and still are supportive by any means necessary. They want this movement to win. So, you know, it's goes together. Some people come here peacefully, others are more ready for like a defensive position, and that's all right.
We've seen the police with very, very, very heavy tactics. Obviously, you know, it's one side versus the other. Of course, they're getting hit with bricks, they're fighting people, but it's very violent out there. Is that not something you guys worry about? Because the police are dressed up like RoboCop and you're like this, you know, you're not worried?
It's worse and worse. Since the Gilets jaunes and even before, the police has become more and more violent with military-type weapons, using tear gas, flash rubber bullets and so on. So yeah, nowadays a lot of people are really terrified to go to protest. So we could be even more without that. I have to admit that the repression is kind of working in this way, but on the other hand, you can see around there are still so many people that are ready to face this violence. So that's a good thing, and we are not this afraid about this police and its methods.
Is this still about pension reform?
Oh no, it got broader. To be fair, like, it's not just about the pension reforms nowadays. We also are protesting for much more.
Like what?
Like another kind of society against its government, against its police, basically like to overthrow this government in one way or another.
Do you think that's going to happen, really?
I don't think it will happen this time, but you know, it's still a good period for that. We're building something. We're building our networks. We're gathering more and more people. A lot of people, it's their first time they're protesting, so that's a good thing. They are learning a lot. They are coming together, you know, sharing information, ideas, and so we're getting bigger.
Some people are saying, oh, you guys are just vandals, you're just tearing the place apart for no reason. What would you say to that?
Of course, I will say that, but what can we do, you know? There will be always people like saying crazy shit about that. The government itself during the Yellow Jacket said we were paid by Russia or whatever, you know. We don't really care about that anymore.
Yeah. Obviously, the French are known for protesting. People say, oh, the French are protesting over everything. Do you think this is different, or is it just more of the same?
Oh yeah, I think it's different because the movement is both huge and really offensive in some way, you know, in a positive way. So I think we went like one step further from movements that happened before. That's very interesting. We have like the best part of the old unions movement and of the Yellow Jackets, with also people coming from like ecological movements and so on, all coming together. And that's very positive. It's kind of a truth, you know, everybody agrees to fight the same struggle. On the other hand, we have to also to agree to disagree. There are various kinds of protest and also various ideological outlooks, let's say. Sometimes clashes happen between trade unions and autonomous groups. and there is nothing we can do really to prevent that. So I'm really happy it's not happening this day.
What is it that you guys are so angry at Macron about specifically, if you could sum it up?
Specifically, I would say like his authoritarian policy. It's the fact that he doesn't care about the parliament, about anything, about even laws that have been passed before, about any kind of opposition. At the very end, you have to still struggle. So of course we pushed, to other means of protest. Let's say protests are becoming more and more violent, also because we don't have other choices. He doesn't care about what we could say, about what even like parliament members would pass. So as he's just like using whatever he can to achieve his goals, we have to do the same.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck, man. Really weird scene here. You got people just sat in here, having a pint, having some food. A lad there has just been smashed in the face with a police projectile. He's bleeding pretty bad. There were protest medics helping him out. And then lads over here that have just built a barricade, all in the same scene. Very French.
Protests in Paris, both peaceful and violent, continued throughout the day. According to the unions, more than 2 million people came out to protest across France on Mayday. The police say it was around 700,000. The actual number is likely in between. France's Ministry of Interior says that 540 people were arrested and 406 police officers were wounded. France's Observatory of Street Medics says 590 protesters sustained injuries, with 120 of those being serious. After the riots, the violence, the arrests and the injuries, the problems in France remain. The protesters we spoke to feel that the government is ignoring them. Neither side is likely to back down anytime soon.